Hello, my name is Preston Munch, and my show was La Cage aux Folles by Jerry Herman and Harvey Fierstein. Jerry Herman was born in 1954, and we lost him fairly recently in 2019. He's probably best known for his composing in Hello, Dolly. Of course, there's Mame and La Cage aux Folles as well. Jerry Herman was a pretty accomplished composer, of course. At one point, he had 3 shows opening on Broadway at the same time, which just about maybe 1 or 2 people have done before in the past, along with having Hello, Dolly, Mame, and La Cage aux Folles, 3 different shows surpass 1,500 consecutive performances. That's how good these shows were. They were not taken off Broadway for a very long time, like Hello, Dolly. Another thing about Jerry Herman is that he received the Kennedy Center honor in the White House in, I believe, 2010, just for lifetime achievement in fine arts. A great achievement for anyone to get. And a quick story. I have a quick story for each person here. Alan Carr is the producer of the show, but Jerry Herman also wanted to take on the show at the same time. He was just a few days late, though. He watched the movie, and then either the morning after or the night of, he called to make sure that he could have the rights to produce this show, to make this show happen. But Alan Carr beat him to it. And fortunately for Jerry Herman, well, his agent said to leave it alone. You'll find another show. There's no way around it. But Jerry Herman, he got contacted by Alan Carr and his executive team, and they made him the composer of this show. So it all worked out for Jerry Herman in the end. Maybe not the way that he wanted, but honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. Harvey Fierstein, of course, the writer of this show, starring in Hairspray, Kinky Boots with Cyndi Lauper, and more recently, The Wiz in Hairspray, adapted for TV. He wrote both of those. I believe he won an Oscar for acting in Hairspray as well. What I think is very important, one of the most important aspects of Harvey Fierstein relating to La Cage aux Folles is he got a Tony. I don't know if I said Oscar before. A Tony for writing La Cage aux Folles. Best book of a musical. And in his acceptance speech, he mentioned his husband, which, based off speculation in the late 70s, early 80s, I feel like that was unheard of. So I think for this show, for Harvey, for gay culture, I think it was a big step forward in advancing that it is okay to be gay. And I just think it was a good, obviously not an end to the show, but a good bookend for the production of the show. And him mentioning that on national television just to get it out there, to make sure that everybody knows that it's okay. Moving on to the show itself, I've got a quick description of a couple characters here for you. George is the owner of La Cage aux Folles. The show La Cage aux Folles, the place La Cage aux Folles is about all things drag, all things gay, performances every night. He's also the spouse of Albin and the father of Jean-Michel, 2 characters we'll get to right now. Albin is the star of La Cage aux Folles, also goes by Zaza. George is right here on the left, Albin on the right. Interesting about this picture is that the person who plays Albin here is a drag queen. Goes by Ginger Minge, and she was on RuPaul's Drag Race. That's really where she got boosted up in the fame of drag in the world. And it's just nice to see that I can land her somewhere like this picture was taken in Chicago. So it's very cool to see an actual drag queen play a drag queen. Jean-Michel here on the left in this picture, the son of George and Albin, and is in love with Anne over here on the right. We'll get into this a little later, but Anne is the daughter of a politician, and a politician who is against drag, against being gay. Yeah. It seems like for a show in the 70s, it seems pretty relevant to today, unfortunately. Anyway, so quick synopsis of the show here with a little timeline. The show starts off as a performance, as Zaza is on stage with other drag queens singing about the illusion of drag and how it's helped them and how it could shape your life, how it affects you and things like that, and how you're able to express yourself that way. Alvin has a song shortly after called Mascara, all about it. Great song, funny song. After a couple, we meet a few other characters, not that they're not important, but I didn't necessarily put them in here. George and Jean-Michel, right down here at the bottom, have a little heart-to-heart moment because Jean-Michel says that he wants to marry Anne. But the caveat is that Anne is the daughter of a politician who is against gay people and against drag. So Jean-Michel tells George this information. George does not tell Albin until a little later on in the show. I feel like tells him at the worst time, possibly. So George and Jean-Michel plan a dinner with the parents of Anne, and while Albin is downstairs, they live right above the Cachefaux. While Albin is performing downstairs, they are rearranging the apartment to make it look like a nuclear home. Husband and wife, a kid or two, in this case one kid. And to basically erase anything drag, anything gay in the house. They even have a plan. The husband of the family does not like gay people. And I believe it might be different in some versions, but they have another character step in as the wife of George to try to be as conservative and as conservative and nuclear as possible. So George tells Albin this information, and Albin is pissed. Albin believes that drag, being gay, is not something you should hide, because it is truly yourself, and that's how Albin feels. Albin is proud of who she is, and does not want to live a lie, even if it means his son gets married to the one he loves. So eventually, George and Jean-Michel and Albin come up with a plan to have Albin as the mother of the situation in drag. Again, some other shows divert here. So we have a dinner scene, either in the apartment or in a restaurant. There's some diversion there. And during either the dinner or there's also a performance there too, a song, Albin will take off her wig, signifying that she is a man, and that she blew her cover. And of course the other family is not necessarily happy with this. But the caveat here is that the press is surrounding this politician. When they're in the apartment, there's no way out but through the Cachefaux. So they strike a deal, not necessarily agreeing to all the terms before it actually happens, but they strike a deal that if Jean-Michel can marry Anne, Albin can get the politician out of the press's hands scot-free. No one will know who he is, and the only way that they can do that is to put the politician in drag right up here. I think this is a funny scene. It's the first time, but you'll get used to it. I think even to put some more humor on it, they have a line here in the French movie where the politician says, something to the effect of, "And you put me in white, I look better in black." Like, that's the beauty of the show. Like, it's a very serious topic, but you can have some humor in it. So eventually, politician is escorted downstairs without a problem as a drag queen, and Jean-Michel and Anne live happily ever after. George and Albin make up. All is good in the world. The music in the show, these are probably the three most important songs in the show, the most meaningful songs. "Anne in My Arm," the song to try to convince George. Jean-Michel sings it to try to convince George that Anne is the love of his life, and he wants to marry her so bad. Also, gotta have some straight relationship in there somewhere, I guess. "The Best of Times," this is the song that Zaza sings at the dinner where she takes off the wig, either out of adrenaline or being fed up with not being herself, and she thinks that the family should know. Whatever it is, this is a big plot point in the show, and it actually harkens back. Jerry Herman wrote the song to harken back to the 50s and 60s of Broadway, to reflect how he viewed it and how he thought it was the best time on earth. The biggest song in the show, however, "I Am What I Am," comes at the end of Act 1, right after George asks Albin to leave for the night, for the dinner. It's a gay anthem. There's no other way I can put it. A very, very powerful and important song in the show and in all of Broadway, to be honest with you. Linking the shows, this slide and the EDI issues go together hand in hand, I would say. Firstly, the show, I believe, is a much more modern take on the Ziegfeld Follies in some ways. You can see the comparisons I have here. It's just it's more modern, it's bigger, it's gayer, it's it just really harkens back to these outfits over here, what those were and what these are now. Big feathers, big hats, big dresses, anything you can think of. Both of these shows have it, and I believe La Cage aux Folles was inspired by the Ziegfeld Follies. And you would have Zaza as, I always mess up the pronunciation, Myrna Darby, the person that Ziegfeld believed was the prettiest of them all, the head of the show, pretty much. And to head into the EDI issues, La Cage aux Folles and Showboat, they both deal with different types of marriages, marriages that were frowned upon for the time. Obviously, there was a big difference between race and sexuality, but having these marriages of La Cage aux Folles, the product of a gay coupling marrying into a conservative family who hates gay people, who hates drag. It's a very, what's the word I'm thinking of? I'm blanking. It's bold. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it's a bold move. Controversial. There it is. Same with Showboat. You have interracial marriage. Obviously, it doesn't appear that way in this photo, but her mom was black. Her father was white. So back then, they considered that interracial for her to marry a white person. And in that show specifically, it's in the beginning of the show. So the plot doesn't necessarily focus on it throughout the entire show, but it was still a big deal for a show that early in Broadway to mention something like that. I have a sentence here about it that I combined. Both of these shows combine a serious topic of marrying different cultures with humor, songs, and dance. It's a beautiful combination for both shows, in my opinion, that they were able to do this. And La Cage aux Folles specifically, just before the AIDS pandemic. A very contested time in America and the world for gay people. And I just think it was probably the best time for the show to come about. To ease that situation, or at least to try to ease that situation. But yeah, that is La Cage aux Folles. I hope you enjoyed learning about it as much as I did researching it. If you learn one thing about this, go listen to this. Go watch it. I Am What I Am. Probably the most wonderful, one of the most powerful songs on Broadway. So, thank you so much.